Thank you. It's great to be with you. So many conservative friends. Let me thank Al for the great job he's doing, and American Conservative Union, and all of you that have gathered here for this great event. You know, we gather at a time of impassioned struggle over the future of our nation. But I think we all would agree that our freedom is worth fighting for. It's also good to exercise the freedom to smile. For example, you just have to laugh when it comes to our energy policy today. Seems like every day there's another huge taxpayer-subsidized green energy scheme that goes belly up. Nobody should be shocked that the sales of the Chevy Volt have short-circuited. The failures are so big that you have to change the way you measure things. You know, powering the battery on a Volt takes so many solar power plants, they've started calling it the six-cylinder engine. Just the other day, I saw a bumper sticker on another Volt. It said, "I used to be a member of AAA, and now I run on AAAs." Well, friends, I didn't come here this afternoon to talk about batteries or cars, but about conservative unity that can drive the future of America. I want to talk about how we can end Occupy DC that's been going on now for 1,115 days, and hopefully will end on January 20th, 2013. As a movement, we care about national security and peace through strength. We want small government, low taxes, and a thriving economy. And we accept the overwhelming evidence that a nation is no stronger than the churches and the families who do the bulk of working to promote character and raising the next generation. Altogether, we value the individual, but recognize that no human being enters the world alone. And the more children who enter the world and are taken into the loving arms of a mother and a father, the happier and the more prosperous we and our communities will be. Where do these ideas come from? I think they were written by the Creator on the human heart, but never more fully expressed or pursued than when they were written on the parchment enshrined just blocks from here at the National Archives. It was these ideals that the founders embraced, to which they pledged their lives, their fortunes, and their sacred honor. Rights that came not from the state, but from God Himself. This understanding of the origin of our rights is why we have a right to life. It's why we must have the freedom to teach our children, the freedom to learn, to acquire, to barter, to dispose of property. It is why we have a military that must be a military second to none, because it provides the common defense for the dignity and the freedom of every American. This is our heritage and our common character. And character is not just why we keep a strong defense, it is why we are worth defending. Undermining this character, there are those in our midst, led by our divider-in-chief, who encourage us to see America as balkanized, polarized, and ostracized. Their message is class warfare. And let me be plain. Those who engage in class warfare need some classes of their own, of a different type. They need to study our history and see what this nation can do when it honors freedom, faith, free enterprise, and the family. If you doubt that this conservative unity exists, ask yourself this: can it be mere coincidence that faith, freedom, the free enterprise system, and the family are all under attack at one and the same time from one and the same source? Still, we must recognize how much blame there is to go around. Leaders, people in both parties, did bail out billionaires, rewarded failures, and shoveled cash to friends. They forced us to become shareholders in American Inc., but instead we became debt holders in America Red Inc. This was and is not just an economic problem. It is a virtue problem. Our nation will not have economic recovery until it has moral recovery. It will not build America's greatest car until we build, once again, America's greatest character. America's exceptionalism rests on the bedrock of character. And today, February the 12th, 2012, our nation's character, in fact, the character of all Western nations, is once more in the balance. Let me illustrate by telling the tale of two survivors. The first is Francisco Centino, captain of the Costa Concordia. Today, off the Italian coast, divers have abandoned their search for the bodies of 15 of the 32 people killed in this disaster. As we have learned, Captain Centino abandoned the stricken ship while there were still 300 people aboard. He says that he and his second-in-command managed to fall into a lifeboat. What great aim. We have a recording of Centino defying the repeated orders of his onshore commander to find the pilot ladder and climb back on board. The commander demanded that the captain go on the ship and, quote, tell me how many children, women, or people are on board. Centino apparently felt more comfortable as the captain of the lifeboat. But Centino was not the only man behaving badly that day. One French woman who survived told reporters of a mad scramble for the lifeboats. Quote, I heard children crying out, I don't want to die, as men pushed past them to get themselves off the boat, she said. So much for women and children first, she added. So Captain Centino of the Costa Concordia is a survivor, while a culture that is dying a death of 1,000 cuts in moral standards, is collapsing all around him. Let me turn now to another man, one of many we are in danger of forgetting. His name is Petty Officer Marcus Luttrell, a U.S. Navy SEAL. Luttrell is a survivor, the only one, in fact, a four-man unit from a SEAL Team 10. Luttrell and his fellows were searching for a terrorist leader in the frigid peaks of the Hindu Kush when they were ambushed by a Taliban force of more than 100. As the Taliban swarmed in for the kill, Mikey Murphy, the unit leader, crawled out into an exposed spot, already wounded, putting his life on the line to put his cell phone to his ear to call in for more troops. Luttrell writes this, knowing the phone call could cost him his life, Lieutenant Michael Patrick Murphy, son of Maureen, fiancée of beautiful Heather, walked out into the firestorm. His objective was clear, to make one last valiant attempt to save his teammates. He made the call, made the connection. He spotted our approximate position, the strength of our enemy, and how serious the situation was. When they shot him, I thought mortally he kept talking. Roger that, sir. Thank you, Murphy said. Will those words ever dim in my memory? If I live to be 100, Luttrell writes, will I ever forget them? Would you? That call led to the rescue of Petty Officer Luttrell, the lone survivor of Operation Red Wing. Here we have two extremes of character. A man who started out as the captain of a pleasure cruise, abandoning those who were in his care. And another man who volunteered to fly into the maw of hell to defend his nation against bloodthirsty radicals. Yet it is not those of extraordinary valor whose loss is striking today. These men, and not a few women, have appeared in great numbers over the past decade and proudly worn the uniforms of our nation. No, what we see in rising number is men without chest, to borrow C.S. Lewis's great phrase, who will shove children aside to get into the lifeboats. That shoving, my friends, is not limited to the Costa Concordia. It is happening across our culture. It happens hundreds of thousands of times a year when men do not step up for the human beings that they help create. It happens more and more as men and women retreat from the sacrifices involved in marrying and raising a family. It happens every time a politician votes for a highway or a no-bid contract, knowing that down the road somewhere there'll be a campaign contribution, or even better, a high six-figure consulting job. It happens every time an international businessman turns his head at the absence of basic human rights under one of our trading partners. It is happening on a grand scale. As Mark Stein puts it, entire nations are witnessing something extraordinary, the shrinking of generations. In Greece, 100 grandparents have just 43 grandchildren. Bloated welfare states and early retirees protest government austerity programs instead of mourning their empty cradles. The people of great nations that defended tyrannies on the right and on the left just 60 years ago now peer into the cul-de-sac of near childlessness. Not even Shakespeare could depict this tragedy. While here at home, our president mocks the very people clinging to their guns and their Bibles who secured our freedoms and won the peace. I pray with every breath that we never forget the soldiers who clung to their Old and New Testaments and their guns on the beaches of Normandy and Bataan. I pray we never forget why they carried them. It was not the fear of people who were different that drove them. It was a desire to see all people enjoy the freedoms that we have. And I pray that once again and soon we have a president who will never again mock such Americans publicly or privately. Americans will never agree on every detail of public morality, but it is vital that we get the big questions right. The American way is to be tolerant of less than vital differences, but insistent on core principles and respectful when we don't agree. That is why the Obama administration's recent effort to crush moral and religious liberty in the health care of our nation may be the single most breathtaking violation of the American spirit in modern history. My friends, this cannot stand. Every captain of every ship is a hero in front of his own mirror. But when the testing comes, our self-image is not enough. In this our day of testing, may we have the courage of character and the strength of faith in our Creator, as did our founders, as did the men of SEAL Team 10 and the soldiers of 1,000 other missions we will never know about. Let us stand together as Americans, thankful for our freedom, confident in our values, proud of our history, and determined to succeed. May we live by the example of the Americans who have gone before us, who stood fast when danger beckoned on the barren mountaintop or when terror lurked in the waves of a cold, dark sea. For if we do, my friends, we will find that America's days, America's best days, are yet to come. Thank you. God bless you, and may God bless the United States of America.